welcome back to my channel. I'm Deanna and you're watching Orchid. Now I recently got a request to do an update on my Cymbidiums. The reason I don't really talk about my Cymbidiums very much is because, well, they've never done particularly well for me and they never bloom for me. So they basically form this little part of my collection which I call the Forgotten Orchids. These are the orchids which have caused me enough trouble in the past that I've decided to put them out here. I think Roger calls it putting them under the hedge. However, I don't really put stuff under the hedge, I put stuff here and then very occasionally I still water them. So this spot has actually changed a little bit because Jared put some extra meshing back there, so I've actually put some of the Vandas and stuff over here. So this little area's grown a little bit, but it's still fairly low maintenance. I don't use RO water, I use tap water, or from the hose, and well, they're all still alive. So I'm going to show you the Cymbidiums as well as the other orchids that I have out here at the moment. So I have 3 Cymbidiums left in my collection. I never bothered repotting them, but they're in clear plastic pots and they're filled with algae. They're probably well due for a repot. The medium's quite dense in there, but I do keep them surrounded by these self-watering containers, so they just sit like in them, and you can see inside the self-watering container is like those cone holes. So when I water it, it fills this reservoir and the water comes out of here, and that water actually more than anything provides stability for the pot so it doesn't blow over on a windy day. Last year I had really bad spider mites on these guys. These, the Cymbidiums and the Dendrobium kingianum types, were the worst affected. The spider mites didn't actually tend to attack that much else unless they were very proximal to these orchids. But I've got some spider mite treatments and systemic miticides from eBay this year. So I think as the weather warms up, and it is starting to warm up a little bit, I'm going to treat these guys. But let's have a look at this one quickly. I've lost the tag, but I think it's called Kiwi Midnight. If we have a look here, you can still see there's still signs of spider mite. I think there's a little mite there, maybe down here as well. So I'll probably treat these soon, but this is a growth that began this year, so that's growing on. And this is probably the one that was actually the worst affected by spider mites last year. This next one is, can't believe these tags, I'm blown away, but this is Cymbidium Paradisian Delight, and I do believe this one tried to bring out a flower spike but it aborted. Anyhow, you can see that it's brought out this growth this season. I'm still bringing it out, and it's got a little thing forming here which feels pretty solid and that, so I think they're actually new growths. These guys are meant to spike pretty much in autumn, late autumn, early winter, and winter's wrapping up here, so I think its window has passed. This one here is Cymbidium Foxfire Amber. That's its growth from last year, and you can see it's starting to bring out a new growth there. So unfortunately nothing too exciting to report on these guys. Maybe next year they'll flower, but as you can see they are in direct sunlight, they get all the elements, and now they're getting hosed down with the rest of these guys. So the way this is set up, this wall is facing east, and so it actually gets direct sun until about midday, when the sun is kind of on the other side of this fence, and then it gets shaded by the fence. It actually works out pretty well. These are all highlight plants, and I've only gotten some damage on one of them, which is this Vanda. You can see there's some sun damage, and I actually think that is from watering. So if you water a plant and it gets hot direct sun on it, the water will magnify that light and it will burn. So it doesn't look like a typical burn, it looks like a burn that's been created by some water. So just for you to know, but you just got to watch them obviously. So this is actually Vanda Tricolour, and And I've always known that this is a very highlight plant, and I got it as a seedling. It's grown probably about doubled in size since I got it, and it's always been super healthy for me. But being a seedling, I don't think it's ever bloomed before, and certainly not seeing anything obvious right now. But it's doing very well. I pot this one in the stones back I think in January with the rest of the Vandas, and it just loves it. It loves this setup. You can see how many roots it's grown since then, so it's doing very well. Over here we've got Dendrobium euryalis, which has been out here in this area since it finished flowering last year essentially, and it had spider mites as well. Doesn't seem to be a problem at the moment, but spring is usually the season for the spider mites, so it'll get treated. You can see it's got a few buds coming out there. It's quite a cute flower, and a couple of new growths starting up there. So yeah, full direct sun, doesn't seem to be too worried. And the other one here, I've lost the tag to it, and off the top of my head I can't remember what it is, but it grew a beautiful cane this season. So that's while it was outside, completely neglected. These guys dried out significantly. Sometimes for a week I wouldn't do anything with them. No signs of flowers, but we'll see what happens. So a couple of these other Vandas down here, you'll remember these guys. So there's that one and this one down here, which is the Aerides quinquevilnera. They've been out here handling the direct sun. I actually think this leaf tip dieback was already there. But I was really having trouble managing them with the other Vandas, and I needed to water them separately, so they got put out here and they seem to be fine. This one's got new roots coming out. I do believe this one has, see that root tip there? You see that root tip there on this bottom one? So I'm thinking that I might transfer one of these guys into my setup. It's going to be a difficult, very difficult repot without damaging the roots, so I'll just make sure that I protect these particular roots, and I'll probably just repot one of them and have the other one as a backup in case I stuff things up. This is another Cattleya. I've lost the tag again to this one, so I have to look it up, but this is another one from that Rosella Orchids haul, and these roots are crazy as well. This one absolutely needs to come out of the pot, but I have just been waiting for a new growth and some new roots. I checked it out today and I finally peeled back some of the sheaths, and I can definitely see a new growth starting up there. I do find the best time to repot Cattleyas is if you can find a time when the growths are just about an inch long, like not quite beginning to leaf out yet, just around the inch mark, and you do have signs of new roots growing. That doesn't always happen, that you have them both, so it could be one or the other, but I do find that if you can catch it at a time where it's got both those things, then I've usually got at least a 90% success rate with repotting. Even as that is, a lot of these old roots will end up dying off. Like, most of these roots aren't even in media anymore, and I'm going to have to damage them when I try and take them off that plastic. So I've got this other big Vanda out here as well, and I've always known it appreciates some high light, and I thought I'd see how it handled this out here, but it seems to be quite happy. It is Vanda Somsri Glory Pink, and you can see I've put this like dodgy bag of slow release fertilizer there, so I usually hose it down and the fertilizer drips through. I think it's doing okay. Again, it's got a little bit of a sign of damage there, so I think I have to be a bit more careful watering in the morning. I think early morning is best. Sometimes on my days off I end up watering them a bit later, like it's about 9:30 now and it's probably a bit too late, so I'll just wait for the sun to go over the other side because it's still fairly warm and breezy, and that water should be gone by night time. The last plant out here is this Epidendrum. Look at it, all these leaves are going purple. So this Epidendrum didn't end up bringing out a new growth. It actually brought out this cakey up there on the flower stem, and I'm just going to have to hop up so you guys can see it properly. So if you guys can see here, in amongst all the jasmine is this Epidendrum cakey, which to my surprise I found was in bud last week. So it has these beautiful yellow blooms, and it blooms for like ages, for about 6 months. So I will probably, after it finishes blooming, remove that cakey. I'll probably give it away because it'll probably do better on a mount, and I don't think I'll be mounting anything. So yeah, that was a nice surprise. So again, you can see the location of this compared to my yard, but that's my jasmine plant as well. It blooms every spring, blooms for only about a week or two in spring, and it's a viney plant. You can see it's actually wrapped its way around my epidendrum. I'm not sure if they're flower spikes or if they're just new growth points. Yeah, I'll probably have to unwind that, but I'll probably just leave it until the jasmine's finished blooming. It's not really a weed, it's just a vine. It's not strangling the epidendrum, whereas I do have weeds. You can see this one is coming through from the neighbour's yard, and it's like a shitty tight vine, and it just wraps around plants and strangles them. So they're the weeds that I need to get rid of. Anyhow guys, I hope you enjoyed that random update. We're all just chilling out here in the winter sun. I think spring's going to come very soon. The nights are around 12 to 14 degrees now, which is warmer than it has been, and I don't know, I really love spring, and I love seeing the changes that spring brings in the orchids, so I'm looking forward to that. However, in terms of these orchids, I'm actually really enjoying them out here. It's really low maintenance, and I always wanted to keep orchids outside. So initially it started out as a little bit of a forgotten section, but now that, you know, some of the Vandas that I've grown for a long time are out here, I come out here at least every day, every second day, and hose them down. The only thing I'll say is that I don't check them like meticulously very often anymore, but they all seem to be loving it out here. The only pests I have are the spider mites that go on the Cymbidiums. Of course, keeping them out here leaves them a bit more exposed to things like snails and slugs and things, which I haven't seen yet, but I'm always keeping a little bit of a close eye out for damage for those things. But at the moment, a lot of them have fresh root tips, and they seem to be pretty happy. And yeah, super low maintenance for me, so the sooner I get my greenhouse, the better, because I can not spend so much time, because I think having so many indoor orchids is really time consuming, and my collection is definitely getting, and I think my collection is definitely getting to the point where it's taking up a lot of my time. And if I wasn't working full-time, I don't think it'd be so much of a problem, but working long hours, you know, long hours and then having so many orchids, I never wanted this to be a chore. I really love doing it, so I need to figure out a way to make it a bit more low maintenance, and I think that having them outside and being able to hose them down is definitely something that I'll be moving towards, hopefully in the future. Anyway guys, the weather's really lovely today, so I'm going to enjoy the rest of the day with the pups. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more orchid videos. Hope you guys have a great week, and happy growing until I see you next time. Frankie! Frankie! Hello!